sales is the most lucrative skill in the world, period. The problem is most sales advice out there today is outdated, cheesy, and can even keep you from getting the deals that can make all the difference in your career. This is the No BS Sales School, a podcast for entrepreneurs and salespeople who want to master the skill of selling without all the BS.
One of my frustrations when I am a prospect, when I'm a customer, is I find, tell me if you find this the same way, salespeople suck at listening. They don't want to listen. They don't try to listen, right? And so I got to be honest. This is something I have to work at myself. And one of the things I talk to people about, my clients about, right, is active listening. Active listening. So what does that mean? The difference between, say, hearing, right, or listening, hearing, and active listening. So hearing, right, is you're not paying specific attention. What you hear is what Charlie Brown's teacher sounds like. Wah, 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 right? So if you're in a meeting and your brain is focused somewhere else, you may not even be hearing, but that's the best that you're doing. If you're worried about closing the sale, if you're emotionally involved, if you feel under pressure, the best you're going to do is hear, right? Which is not helpful. Customers, your prospects, want to be understood, desperately want to be understood. If they can find somebody who will take the time to actually understand the situation they're in, help them figure it out, not by telling, but by asking questions to help them figure it out, you can get a customer client for life, and they will refer you to other people if you can just take the time. So hearing, why, Charlie Brown's teacher. That's all you hear. You can listen, right? Which means you hear the words. You hear the words, but there are three ways we can listen. Let's just go there. There are three ways we can listen to people. And tell me if you recognize any of these. The first way is listening to win. Listening to win. So I see two versions of this. Number one, listening to win is to listen to somebody's issues and then you dismiss them. That's not a big deal. That's not a big deal. That's not a problem. Hey, that's simple. That'll go away. Trying to diminish the problem. Listening to win, to make them feel good in the short term. Number two, well, I'm going to give part B to listening to win, is you are listening with the intent of dismissing the other person's intentions or other person's ideas. Where you're listening, and sometimes it's when we're defensive, right? And you're talking to somebody who you hear them saying something and you're waiting for the opportunity to jump in and tell them they're wrong. You're waiting for the opportunity to jump in and tell them they're wrong. I see this often happen in politics and especially on these damn news shows, right? Where they have 6 talking heads like Hollywood Squares listening to find one place where they can jump in and pop somebody and tell them they're wrong. Also see salespeople doing this, right? Listening to win. The second one is listening to fix. Listening to fix. We're listening for that one thing. We're listening and we're trying to figure out, how can I fix this? 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 The problem with listening to fix, right, is that the problem, in sales anyway, the problem the prospect brings you is never the real problem. The problem the prospect brings you is never the real problem. They'll share with you some little bit. Maybe it's because they haven't thought through the whole thing that's wrong, right? They haven't processed it. Most people don't think very deeply. They're lazy. And most of the time when people are focused, when they have a problem, they focus on the symptoms and not the problem itself. So if you're listening to fix, you'll offer solutions to the problem that they bring you. So for example, listening to fix, I had a guy call me the other day and he said, we're not getting new business and I need to hire new salespeople. We're not getting new business. I need to hire new salespeople. Well, as we dug in, he is the owner of the company. What we figured out was he sucks at managing. I mean, I could help him hire new salespeople. We'd do that. But the problem was we could hire new salespeople. He'd been hiring new salespeople over and over and over again for 10 years. But he doesn't know how to manage people. He doesn't hold people accountable. He didn't know to do that. He got confused between, he said, I don't want to micromanage people. I want to hire people who don't need managing, who are self-motivated. Who doesn't want to hire those? And by the way, there are about 1 million of those out there. They just own their own companies, right? Those people, if you wait to hire somebody who is self-motivated, who doesn't need managing, who's ready, who work on 100% commission, get as rich as they want. We're out here, folks. We just run our own companies, right? So good luck finding those. And here's the thing. If you do find one and you get in their way, they'll quit and leave. And if they're any good, they'll probably take your clients too. The third way, which I contend is the best way, it's also hard, is listening to understand. Where we're listening, and I'll add this as a good activity when you're listening to understand, is to use active listening principles. And what that means is when somebody says something to you, when they're telling their story, when they're sharing the problem, and they take a breath or two, you say, can I tell you what I've heard you tell me? And you tell me if I'm missing something. You said you're having a problem with this. You said you're having a problem with that this is bothering you, and these are the impacts of that. Did I get that about right? It's pretty amazing when you take back what somebody has told you, you condense it and tell them. And what all of a sudden, I don't know if somebody's ever done that to you before or not. Maybe if you've had a sales call with me, you've had that done to you. But all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, that's exactly what I mean. It also gives the person who's listening a chance to say, what did I miss? If you're listening to understand, it means you wait, as when somebody's saying something, you wait until the last word of their last sentence is over until you can process another question to ask. It's not jumping in to interrupt. It's letting the conversation go as it goes. Don't formulate an answer. Don't formulate your next question till you've heard everything that they've said. As a salesperson with great selling skills does not mean you can talk to anybody. A salesperson, a seller with great skills is somebody who can listen to anyone with the ability to understand where that person's coming from. Think about your last sales call. How confident are you that you know exactly where that person was coming from, that you dug deep enough to figure out the real problem, not just the symptoms they were showing you? Go solve the real problem, not just the symptoms. There's a whole lot more money there. There's a whole lot more satisfaction there, and you'll get a whole lot more referrals for solving the real problem and not just the surface issue. Really practice active listening and listening to understand. I'm Walker McKay with No BS Sales. If you need help with listening, if your sales team needs help with accountability, if you're not closing enough new business, we've got several programs, depending upon your situation, to help you. And I'm happy to talk to you about it. Walker at walkermckay.com, 803-917-2817. Let's have a conversation. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the OBS Sales School podcast. If you haven't already, please take 1 minute to write a quick review for the show. It really does make a huge difference. Also, subscribe to the show and please forward this episode to somebody else who needs to hear it. As a bonus for listening, I'm going to give you access to a free mini course, 7 expensive sales mistakes you're making and what you can do about it. Go to www.7salesmistakes.com and get access to the free mini course. That's the number 7salesmistakes.com. Thanks again for listening to the OBS Sales School podcast.